Tonight we delve into the intricate world of a geisha in feudal Japan, where every gesture and glance is a carefully crafted art. Imagine dedicating your life to mastering the subtle arts of elegance, conversation, and seduction, all while maintaining the perfect angle of your wrist. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see our global audience. Dim the lights, perhaps turn on a fan for a soft background hum, and let's immerse ourselves in tonight's journey together. Dawn arrives with the subtlety of a polite knock, no roosters, no fanfare. Just the faint glow through rice paper doors and the soft shuffle of servants pretending they aren't judging your futon posture. You lie perfectly still, not because you're rested, but because any abrupt movement might undo your status as graceful and mysterious. In truth, your back hurts, your hair is flattened on one side, and you've had a dream involving eels that you'd rather not analyze. But none of that matters now. This is the first scene of the day's performance. You are the star, and also the stage decoration. Your attendants enter in hushed tones, bowing so low you briefly consider stepping over them. A warm basin is set before you, as if to say, "Here is your dignity, now scrub behind your ears." They begin their work, cleansing, brushing, preparing you to look less like someone who just woke up and more like a porcelain enigma. Your face is washed gently, your hair brushed with reverence, not because they love you, but because they've seen what happens to court women who show up with frizz. Meanwhile, you maintain the correct expression. Serene, detached, and only mildly annoyed. Still silent because heaven forbid a geisha speak before being powdered. You glance at your reflection in a polished bronze mirror. You look like someone who has opinions but is paid not to share them. Perfect. From beyond the sliding screen comes the muffled laughter of the daimyo, who apparently has energy this morning. That's either a promising sign or a warning. You make a mental note to avoid direct eye contact with his favorite geisha until after tea. You rise from the futon like a swan emerging from fog, assuming the swan has slightly numb legs and a tight obi waiting in her near future. Your sleeves are laid out, the incense is lit, and the illusion begins. As you stretch your shoulders just slightly, you whisper the universal mantra of women everywhere. Here we go again. Now that you're upright and pretending you didn't sleep on your neck wrong, it's time for makeup, or as it's known in the geisha industry, historical self-erasure with a side of toxins. Step 1. The white powder made from crushed rice and in some cases enough lead to qualify as a building material. Your attendant starts patting it onto your face like she's trying to cover up a crime scene. The goal: eliminate all signs of life. If your skin tone resembles anything found in nature, you're doing it wrong. Next comes the neck and chest, because heaven forbid the daimyo glimpses a patch of skin that doesn't look like it was painted on by a ghost. You sit still while they go to town with the puff, occasionally resisting the urge to sneeze and ruin your new identity. Then the eyebrows, yours are irrelevant. They're painted over and redrawn several centimeters too high, creating a look that says, "I'm surprised by everything and emotionally unavailable." It's considered alluring in theory. Now the lips. You'd think they'd be fully painted, but no. Just a dainty little red blob in the middle. It's supposed to look demure. Instead, it looks like you kissed a plum and ran away. But you nod approvingly anyway, because this is how tradition works. If it feels strange and mildly unflattering, you're probably doing it right. And finally, the pièce de résistance, teeth blackening. Yes, really. A sticky iron paste is carefully brushed onto your teeth, making your smile look like it's been censored. Supposedly, this signals that you're off limits. In practice, it only confuses people and gives you one more reason not to grin too often. Throughout this whole ordeal, you sit like a statue being vandalized by a very polite team of artists. You do not move, you do not comment, and you certainly do not ask, "Is this really necessary?" The answer is always yes, not because it makes sense, but because it's been done this way for centuries, and no one wants to be the first to blink. By the end, you look like a painting come to life. If the painting was done by someone who hated skin and liked drama. After being powdered into an emotionally distant kabuki mask, it's time to get dressed. And by dressed, we don't mean slipping into something comfortable. We mean willingly entering a fabric-based endurance challenge. Step 1. Under layers. These are the breathable cotton pieces meant to stop your fancier garments from fusing with your soul during summer. They do not succeed, but at least they give you the illusion of ventilation. Next come the inner robes, decorative, symbolic, and entirely unnecessary, except that they're absolutely required. Each one must be put on in the right order, or your social status drops faster than a clumsy geisha on ice. Color combinations are entirely coded. For example, Dark red over pale green means elegant but mysterious, while white over gold says, "Please don't talk to me before tea." Then there's the outer kimono, heavier, shinier, much less forgiving. By now, your sleeves are long enough to smother a rival geisha if needed, which incidentally is why no one stands too close during morning prep. And finally, the obi, the sash that ties it all together and quietly tries to murder your spine. It's pulled tight enough to remind you you're not allowed to breathe freely until sunset. A well-tied obi can say many things: refinement, poise, and the quiet desperation of someone one sneeze away from full collapse. You don't dress yourself, of course. You stand still while two attendants wrap, fold, tug, and adjust you like they're trying to make origami out of a human being. They don't speak. They just occasionally grunt when something doesn't lie flat. That grunt means, "Hold your arms higher." You learn the language. By the time they're done, you've lost all feeling in your ribs. But you look magnificent, like a walking imperial scroll with passive-aggressive eyes, and the real kicker. This is your daily outfit. You don't even have plans. You might just sit in the garden pretending to read poetry all day, but you must look like you're ready for a royal portrait or a spontaneous seduction, which, to be fair, is not off the table. You're fully dressed now, which is impressive considering you're wearing more fabric than a small pavilion tent. Time for breakfast, or as it's known in geisha circles, an exercise in restraint, posture, and not accidentally dipping your sleeve in the miso. You're seated on a cushion, legs tucked properly beneath you, which is charming if you're a folding fan but a nightmare if you have knees. The tray is placed in front of you, precisely arranged: a bowl of rice, a sliver of grilled fish, 3 pickled vegetables, and a miso soup that looks like it's judging you. The portions are small because you're not here to bulk up. You are here to appear ethereal and faintly underfed, the way all good romantic metaphors do. Your job is to consume just enough to avoid collapsing but not enough to imply you enjoy food. If you chew too enthusiastically, someone will raise an eyebrow. If you ask for seconds, someone will raise a scroll. Eating is done silently. No slurping, no sighing, and definitely no face contortions, even if the pickled plum just sucker punched your MERS. Everything must be graceful. A ballet of chopsticks and disappointment. Your kimono sleeves are enormous, so each bite involves a level of spatial awareness usually reserved for swordplay. You develop techniques. Tuck the sleeve under your forearm, lean slightly sideways, pray it doesn't drag through the soup, and send a wave of fermented tofu across the tatami. All the while, attendants hover quietly. They won't say anything but they're watching. Not in a creepy way, more in the "we'll gossip about this later" way. Every blink is noted, every missed grain of rice is mentally catalogued under mild embarrassment. You finish, bow lightly, and set your chopsticks down with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred relics. Breakfast complete. Was it satisfying? Emotionally, no. Nutritionally, questionable. But spiritually, you feel lighter. That could be the food or the fact that your obi is slowly cutting off circulation to your spine. Either way, you're ready for the next part of your day, which, spoiler alert, mostly involves waiting. Now that you've been powdered, robed, and fed something roughly the size of a toddler's snack, it's time for the geisha's primary daily task: waiting. But not just any waiting, elegant waiting. Waiting that whispers, "Yes, I'm entirely free this afternoon," but in a powerful way. You can't roam the estate freely. Heavens no, that's how scandals happen. Instead, you sit in your designated space, a tastefully minimal garden room with a painted screen, a bonsai tree, and a strategically placed view of a koi pond that hasn't done anything interesting since last autumn. You sit, you wait. Occasionally you adjust your posture so it looks like you're contemplating eternity, not fighting off a leg cramp. You're not allowed to look impatient. That's for merchants and wives. Geishas wait like they're doing you a favor. This wait could last 10 minutes or 5 hours. The daimyo may summon you or not. He might be with another woman reading war poetry, or just napping with his head on a very expensive pillow. The point is, you'll find out when someone tells you, or doesn't. To pass the time, you might compose a poem. Not a good one, just something vaguely sad about plum blossoms and inspoken longing. That's the genre. Bonus points if no one can tell who it's actually about. You could also play a shamisen softly, not too joyful. No one likes a geisha who seems excited. Of course, the other women are waiting too, sometimes within sight, sometimes just out of earshot. It's a silent competition. Who looks most serene, who adjusted her robe just right, who caught the eye of the messenger delivering tea to the daimyo's quarters. It's chess played with glances, posture, and whether or not your obi is tied fashionably off-center. And the trickiest part, looking like you're not waiting at all. You must appear as though your entire sense of self-worth doesn't hang on the possibility of being summoned tonight, which of course it absolutely does, but you're a professional. You sigh quietly, beautifully, and look off into the distance, preferably towards something poetic like a falling leaf or a koi that looks equally bored. If the morning was about preparation, the afternoon is about positioning, and we're not talking about yoga. This is courtly social strategy dressed in floral silk and scented with plum blossom oil. By now the other geishas are fully assembled. You exchange nods, shallow bows and smiles that look warm but could cut glass. This isn't friendship, it's centered espionage. Everyone's watching, listening, and very quietly trying to destroy each other's reputations without ever raising their voices. The room is calm, the tension is floral, and the topics of conversation are trivial by design. Lady Aiko's calligraphy has improved. Translation. She used to write like a drunken monk. The daimyo seemed very peaceful this morning. Translation. He didn't summon you, did he? And of course, the classic, you look radiant today, which actually means, you look less dead than usual. Congratulations. Compliments are verbal daggers sheathed in politeness. The sharper the smile, the more likely you're being insulted. A well-timed observation about someone's kimono being bravely modern can spark a week-long existential crisis. You navigate all of this with grace, or at least you pretend to. Smile gently, tilt your head when listening. Appear impressed by someone's haiku, even though it was clearly plagiarized from a folding screen. Then comes the moment someone mentions the daimyo. Maybe he was seen walking near the pond. Maybe he paused to examine a fan one of the other geishas left out by accident. The room becomes still, but casually still, like no one's definitely panicking on the inside. This is when the performance deepens. You must seem interested in him but not too interested, confident but not cocky, available but untouched. It's like trying to be a dessert that everyone wants but no one's sure is safe to eat. And through it all, you keep your voice soft, your posture impeccable, and your insults indirect. This is how status is gained. Not through war, but through whispers. And if you leave the room with even one rival doubting her sleeve choice, her poem, or her scent, you've done well today. You haven't been summoned yet, but hope springs eternal, and also sweats discreetly under 12 layers of silk. So as the sun crawls past its highest point and you've survived another round of eye contact diplomacy, it's time for your just-in-case bath. Not mandatory, just highly recommended in the same way it's recommended you don't smell like anxiety and pickled radish when entering a daimyo's private chamber. The bathhouse is quiet, steamy, and filled with the faint scent of yuzu peels and pressure. You undress with your attendant's help because most geishas cannot single-handedly escape the labyrinth of ties, folds, knots, and moral restrictions that come with formal kimono wear. Once disrobed, finally free of the human upholstery, you step into the hot water. For a brief moment you are no one, not a symbol, not a strategy, just a sweaty woman in a tub, wondering if she shaved her legs evenly enough for an aristocrat with questionable eyesight. You scrub, but not aggressively. There's a technique to this. You want to be clean, not desperate. A light scent is applied, nothing too floral. You're not trying to smell like a geisha with something to prove, just alluring enough to imply you own your own fan. Hair is re-oiled, skin is dusted, feet are checked for calluses because yes, even your heels must be ready for inspection by men who haven't clipped their toenails since the last rice harvest. And all this might be for nothing. You may not be called. You may go back to your quarters and reapply all your powder just to sit perfectly still while composing emotionally vague poetry about ducks. But if he does summon you, and you show up smelling like stress and raw tofu, scandalous. So you bathe, you prepare, you become soft and subtle, and ever so mildly flammable with incense oil because being ready is part of the game, even if the invitation never arrives. And besides, the best revenge on the other geishas is looking better than they do, while not even trying. It doesn't happen with trumpets. There's no scroll unrolled by a herald, no dramatic gong. The summons, when it finally comes, arrives the way most terrifying things do in high society, politely. A soft knock, a bowed messenger, a single phrase, his lordship requests your presence. Translation. You've been chosen. Also, you have 20 minutes to mentally prepare, repowder, and spiritually detach. Your attendants spring into action. You, meanwhile, attempt to look neither smug nor nauseous. After all, this is a compliment, possibly. It could mean he favors you, or it could mean his favorite is annoyed with him and you're the understudy. Either way, tonight you're on stage. First comes reapplication. A fresh layer of powder to mask the existential dread, a tiny touch of rouge to say alive but mysterious, and a careful adjustment of your outer kimono. You switch to the more expensive one, the one with cranes embroidered in flight, because nothing says, I'm worth undressing slowly, like symbolic birds in gold thread. Next, the hair, already perfect, but you go over it again just in case. You add a comb, not too flashy, and dab a little extra yuzu oil behind the ears. You smell like restraint and citrus ambition. As you walk toward his private chambers, the hallway stretches endlessly. Every step is measured, not too fast, not too eager. You are a river, not a waterfall. Behind closed doors, rival geishas pretend not to notice, but they do, oh they do. You reach the inner room. A screen is slid open. You bow deeply, elegantly. You're not nervous, just incredibly aware of every inch of your body and whether or not your lips are smudged. He greets you, or doesn't. Either way, you smile faintly. You're now in character, a favorite, a diversion, a muse for the evening. No one says that's not how this works. You are here because you were chosen. And for the next few hours you must be art, warmth, mystery, and convenience. And maybe, just maybe, unforgettable. But let's not get cocky yet. There's still tea to pour. Despite what the gossiping ladies-in-waiting might say, a geisha's evening with the daimyo doesn't start with disrobing. It starts with ritual, specifically a slow, fragrant descent into flirtation so formal it might be mistaken for a tea ceremony with unresolved tension. You sit, not too close, not yet. There's a lacquered table between you, a pot of sake warming silently, and enough eye contact to fuel an entire haiku anthology. He pours. You sip it slowly, like it's not just fermented rice but a coded invitation to be charming. Compliments begin, both ways. His robe, magnificent. Your hair, exquisite. No one mentions that you both know exactly how this night ends, but it's part of the charm to pretend otherwise. Conversation drifts, poetry, dreams, sometimes a story about a hawk he once saw that looked like destiny. You nod, intrigued. And not just because his hand is inching closer. You've heard the hawk story 3 times, but that's not the point. The point is, tonight you're the muse. Even if you're also the well-trained performer, there might be music. Maybe a soft melody on the shamisen, not played by you, of course. You're busy holding the room's attention like a delicate fan. Open, mysterious, and possibly sharp-edged. Now comes the touch, light at first, a hand brushing yours. A compliment about your scent, carefully phrased to imply admiration, not obsession. If he's in a poetic mood, he might compare you to a plum blossom caught in snow. If he's tired, you might get, "You look nice tonight." Either way, you smile and bow your head like he just recited love from Mount Fuji itself. Eventually, the formality fades. The table is moved, the lights dim, the screen doors close, and you rise slowly, of course, to follow him into the adjoining chamber. This is not transactional, this is theater, and your role is to be everything at once. Desirable, graceful, compliant, and memorably alluring without ever seeming like you were trying. No pressure. You just have to seduce a warlord using 3 centuries of etiquette and a strategically timed glance. Let's be clear. This isn't romance. This is a government-approved performance featuring 2 leads, 0 dialogue, and a strong supporting cast of expectations. You enter the chamber like moonlight incarnate, or at least that's the goal. You kneel, bow, smile. You do not trip. That was last month. You've trained for this. Literally months of lessons on posture, touch, breath control, and facial expressions that say, yes, I'm enjoying this, without ever crossing into anything as vulgar as honesty. The futon is simple. The bedding is clean. The air is scented with incense that promises serenity. Though what it really offers is a faint tickle in your nostrils and the urgent need not to sneeze. He begins the ritual with touch, soft at first, measured. He's testing the waters, or perhaps reminding himself which geisha you are. You respond accordingly, just enough to signal interest, never so much as to appear enthusiastic. Remember, mystery is sexy, desperation is not. There's no conversation that ended with the poetry. This is about presence. You're both in character now. He, the powerful lord, you, the willing flower who conveniently just bloomed tonight. You move the way you were taught, gracefully, precisely, as if choreographed by someone who's never actually been in love but read a lot of poetry about it. You make all the right sounds at all the right times, not too loud, not too silent, just enough to let him know he's doing well, even if you're mentally reorganizing your poetry scrolls. Eventually, it ends, either in triumph or in what you will later refer to as a gentle fade-out. He may say something, he may not. You smile either way. You rise, redress, and bow carefully, hiding the pins that left indentations in your scalp and the cramp that started somewhere in Act 2 and never really went away. Then you leave. You do not look back, you do not ask how it was, you do not ask if he remembers your name. Because this was not for connection, this was for position. And tonight you had it. For now he's asleep, sprawled out across the futon like a man who's just conquered a province and not, say, fallen asleep immediately after moderate effort. You lie beside him, eyes open, spine straight, mind racing. not because you're overwhelmed with emotion but because this part, the afterglow, is where the real mental gymnastics begin. Did you do well? Was your hair still in place? Did he like the part where you tilted your head just so? Should you have moaned a bit more, or was that one breath too loud? These are the questions you won't ask but will obsessively review like a general analyzing battlefield losses. You can't move yet. Leaving too soon seems cold, staying too long seems clingy. So you lie there, watching the ceiling, counting the bamboo slats and wondering if the other geishas are awake. Probably. They can smell a summoning like wolves smell fear. The silence is heavy, not unpleasant, just full of unsaid things, unasked questions, and the faint hope that you've earned yourself a slightly better breakfast tray tomorrow. He might mumble something, a compliment, a name, hopefully yours. You nod in the dark, even if he's already snoring like a man who's never had to sleep with his dignity folded inside his obi. Eventually, you rise quietly. The graceful post-coital exit is a delicate thing. You gather your robe, tie your sash, and straighten your hair just enough to look like a woman who glows from mystery, not sweat. There's no one in the corridor, but you walk like they're all watching. Because in this place they always are. Your footsteps are soft, your face is neutral, your heart tucked away, locked up behind your very best performance yet. You return to your quarters. Someone has already lit the lamp. The tea is warm. You drink it without tasting it. You sit down alone, and only then do you exhale. You don't know if tonight meant anything. You don't know if he'll remember it, or you, tomorrow. But at the very least, you know this. You were chosen. And in this world, that is currency. Even if it only lasts until sunrise, you wake up early again. Not because you're refreshed, but because geishas don't get to sleep in. That's for wives or men or mythical creatures with no political rivals. The futon you fell into last night feels smaller. Or maybe you're just aware of how little space you actually occupy in the palace's hierarchy. A decorative presence wrapped in brocade and tightly controlled expectations. Your attendants enter, eyes politely avoiding yours. No one says anything about where you were last night, but they all know. The scent of incense lingers faintly on your skin, and your hair is only slightly messier than the standard, unapproachable cloud of perfection look. They begin the process. The new powder, comb, fold, reconstruct the masterpiece that is your public face, which is remarkably similar to yesterday's masterpiece, with the only real difference being your increased awareness of how exhausting beauty actually is. The silence between you and your attendants is companionable, if also tinged with quiet judgment. One might cough ever so slightly. Another might casually mention that Lady Ko received a rare silk comb this morning. You nod. The game is back on. There's no debrief, no recap. You don't tell anyone how the daimyo smelled faintly of plum wine, or how he said something vaguely poetic before falling asleep mid-sentence. You certainly don't mention that you're now second-guessing every moment of eye contact. That would be unseemly. Instead, you sit once again in your chamber, composed, refined, preparing for another day of passive warfare disguised as floral arrangement critiques and shamisen practice. You sip tea, write half a poem, stare at a crane outside the window, and wonder what it feels like to fly away from all of this while wearing only one layer of clothing. By now, news will have traveled. Everyone knows you were summoned. Everyone is recalculating, including you, because that's what being a geisha really means. Balancing emotion with calculation, intimacy with strategy, and desire with absolute silence. You smooth your sleeve. You breathe. Today you are not the favorite, but you are still in the game, and in this palace survival looks an awful lot like stillness in silk. You don't need ears to hear gossip in a palace. You just need functioning intuition and a decent understanding of passive-aggressive phrasing. Within an hour of sunrise, your name has floated through at least 3 courtyards, 2 tea rooms, and a suspiciously loud flower arranging session. No one says it directly, of course. They say things like, "How radiant Lady so-and-so seems this morning," which means, she's glowing because she got chosen, and we're all pretending not to notice. I wonder if his lordship prefers traditional poetry or livelier company these days. Translation. She probably recited something dumb and still got picked. Unbelievable. You hear these things in passing. Snippets whispered behind fans or dropped into casual conversations like little poison seeds. It's impressive in a way. Like watching trained assassins throw shade with floral metaphors. Your job, stay quiet, say nothing. Smile faintly the way a cat does when it knows something you don't. Because engaging in gossip is risky, but being the target of gossip and reacting, fatal. So instead, you vanish a little. You take longer walks, sit slightly further from the group, practice your calligraphy with such focus that people begin to wonder if you're either deeply enlightened or quietly scheming. Either way, good, because in the geisha arena, invisibility is a superpower. The loud ones get noticed, the noticed ones get envied, and envy here is basically a decorative dagger in a silk sheath. You respond to barbed compliments with kindness so polite it's insulting. "Oh, you think my robe is too elaborate? Thank you, it was a gift." Smile, bow, exit the scene. You survive on restraint, timing, and the occasional knowing glance that suggests you could destroy someone if you cared enough. And while others scramble for proximity to power, you perfect the art of subtle distance. You don't need to always be in the spotlight because you were already in it once. It starts subtly. Fewer glances, slower summons. One day the maid forgets your favorite incense. Another, your tea arrives lukewarm. The message is clear, not harsh, not cruel, just indifferent. You are no longer tonight's mystery, someone else is. She's new or not. Maybe she's just had a glow-up and a conveniently timed poem. Either way, she's suddenly the focus. The fan of attention has turned, and it's not pointing at you. You handle it like a professional. No complaints, no dramatics, just a slightly longer pause before bowing to the daimyo, and an almost imperceptible tightness in your smile when someone says, "Isn't it lovely how youthful Lady Hannah looks these days?" Of course it is. Youth is so charming, so temporary. Now comes the test. Can you stay poised while being quietly replaced? Can you fold your hands and compliment your successor's hairpin while mentally calculating how long she'll last before she trips over her own ambition? This is the unspoken part of the job. Not just being chosen but being unchosen gracefully. The fall from favor is not a scandal. Just a shift in the tide. You're still in the palace, still dressed like a painting, still performing. But the spotlight has moved, and now you have to survive in the shadows without looking like you care. You still show up to the garden, still compose poems, still sit perfectly still during afternoon tea while everyone tries to read into the way your cup trembles. But the truth is, you do care, of course you do, not just for him, but for the position, the validation, the tiny power that came with being the center of a very controlled universe. And now you are a supporting character in someone else's story. But you're still here, still powdered, still composed, still waiting. Because in a palace like this, everything shifts eventually. Fortunes, fashions, favorites. All it takes is a wrong word, a broken fan, or a poetic metaphor about rain that sounds a little too personal. So you wait, not bitter, just patient. Because if favor can fade, it can also return. And you'll be ready when it does. Eventually, the paint comes off. Not just the white rice powder you wear like armor, but the performance, the posture, the careful pauses between each word. At some point, whether it's years later or just a moment in solitude, you catch a glimpse of yourself without the costume. And the strange thing is, you're still there. Beneath the layers of fabric, reputation, jealousy, poems, and politeness lives a woman who remembers everything. The first summons, the first compliment, the first time she realized she was no longer the favorite. You've played every part, muse, rival, mystery, shadow. You've smiled through rejection and composed haiku while quietly planning your emotional survival. And what do you have to show for it? A spine stronger than your obi, a memory sharper than any court gossip, and an entire palace of women who either fear you, envy you, or quietly hope they age half as well as you have. Because here's the secret no one talks about. Geishas age, they fade, but they also endure. And in a world built around staying desirable, endurance is the most rebellious act of all. You no longer rush to the mirror when the messenger arrives. You no longer wonder if your hair is pinned at the right angle for seduction. Some days you skip the full makeup ritual and just sit by the koi pond because sometimes watching fish do nothing feels more honest than trying to look like a poem. You still dress in silk, yes, but now you wear it for yourself. And when the new girls arrive, powdered, bright-eyed, walking the same hallway you once conquered, you smile. Not kindly, not cruelly, just knowingly. Because you've played the game, danced on the edge of power with your lips painted and your voice lowered to a whisper. And you're still here, still graceful, still dangerous in silence. In the shadowy corridors of ancient power, where ambition and treachery intertwined, poison emerged as the silent arbiter of fate. Cleopatra, the cunning queen of Egypt, mastered this lethal art, wielding venom with the precision of a surgeon. Her knowledge of nightshade, hemlock, and other deadly substances made her a formidable figure, capable of eliminating threats with a mere drop. The asp, her legendary companion in death, symbolized her defiance and control, ensuring her legacy would never be tarnished by the humiliation of capture. In the grand tapestry of Roman intrigue, poison was the weapon of choice for those who sought power without the mess of civil war or public execution. Emperors like Claudius and Nero employed the services of skilled poisoners like Locusta, who could concoct deadly brews that mimicked natural illnesses. The fear of poison permeated Roman society. leading to elaborate defenses such as silver spoons and antidotes made from crushed emeralds. Yet despite these precautions, the silent tide of poison continued to claim victims, whispering through the halls of marble and blood. Ancient China, with its deep understanding of pharmacology, blurred the lines between healing and harm. The elite of the Han, Tang, and Ming dynasties used poison as a subtle language of power, often administered through whispers, silk sleeves, and teacups. Court alchemists and palace physicians walked a tightrope, creating antidotes one day and poisons the next. Women, particularly imperial consorts and concubines, became adept at this quiet war, using poison to eliminate rivals and secure their positions. The fear of poison led to advanced systems of detection, with officials testing meals with silver chopsticks to ensure safety. In the ancient courts of India, the legend of the Vishakanyas, or poison maidens, struck terror into the hearts of kings and dignitaries. These women, whose bodies were said to be lethal, could kill with a mere kiss or touch. Whether myth or reality, the fear they invoked was palpable, leading to strict precautions and countermeasures. Poison in India was not just a tool of assassination but a symbol of seductive danger, a reminder that beauty could be deadly. Herod the Great, ruler of Judea, used poison as a tool of paranoia and control. His fear of rivals and Roman suspicion led him to eliminate threats quietly and efficiently. Poison allowed Herod to maintain his grip on power without stirring public unrest, ensuring that his enemies met their end in silence. His obsession with poison extended to his final days, as he sought to ensure that his death would be mourned. In the Achaemenid Empire of Persia, poison was a tool of refinement and elegance. Court officials like Bagoas wielded poison with precision, eliminating rivals and securing power. The Persians' advanced knowledge of herbal medicine allowed them to concoct subtle and deadly poisons, making assassination an art form. Poison in Persia was not just a method of execution but a symbol of discretion and control. The ancient world's fascination with poison reveals a darker side of human nature, where power and ambition often led to betrayal and death. Poison, with its silent and invisible nature, became the perfect weapon for those who sought to control their destinies without the mess of public conflict. It was a tool of the educated and aristocratic, a language of silent negotiation between survival and ambition. In the halls of marble and blood, poison whispered louder than swords, shaping the course of history with its deadly touch. In the grand narrative of human ingenuity, the evolution of locks and keys stands as a testament to our enduring quest for security and control. The ancient Egyptians, with their wooden pin tumbler locks, laid the groundwork for a technology that would echo through the ages. These early locks, though rudimentary, embodied a profound philosophy of protection, regulating access and symbolizing the eternal struggle between order and chaos. As the baton of civilization passed to the Mesopotamians, the concept of security took on a new form with the cylinder seal. These intricately carved cylinders, worn as personal signatures, authenticated and restricted access through symbolic means. In a society where reputation and official marks carried immense weight, the cylinder seal was a primitive yet effective form of two-factor authentication, blending identity with security. The ancient Greeks, known for their craftsmanship and philosophical depth, refined the art of lockmaking. Their metal bolt locks and L-shaped keys were not just tools but symbols of authority and autonomy. In a culture that valued property rights and citizenship, a locked door signified privacy and ownership, making the locksmith a respected technician of trust. The Romans, ever the engineers, brought structure and durability to lockmaking. Their warded locks and puzzle locks, often worn as rings, were both functional and fashionable. In Roman society, keys were status symbols, representing ownership and power. The intricate designs and false keyholes of Roman locks reflected a society that valued both security and sophistication. In the East, Chinese lockmaking was a reflection of balance and precision. The Chinese padlock, or suo, with its spring-loaded tumblers and symbolic designs, was a marvel of mechanical engineering. These locks, often shaped like animals or mythical creatures, combine practicality with spiritual protection, embodying the Chinese philosophy of harmony and balance. Ancient India, with its rich tradition of symbolism and ritual, approached lockmaking as an art form. Hidden compartments and secret trigger locks in temples and palaces were not just mechanical devices, but psychological deterrents. The Arthur Shastra, an ancient political treatise, detailed the importance of guarding information and treasure, reflecting a culture that valued wisdom and redirection over brute force. In the misty forests and icy fjords of northern Europe, The Celts and Norse viewed locks as symbols of territory and ownership. Their iron padlocks and key-shaped amulets were both functional tools and spiritual charms, reflecting a worldview where security was not just physical but cosmic. Women in Viking society often held the keys to the household, symbolizing trust and authority. As the Byzantine Empire rose in the east, it carried forward Roman engineering and refined it with Eastern elegance. Byzantine locks, often shaped like animals or crosses, were miniature masterpieces of mechanical engineering. The tradition of wearing keys as badges of status continued, with bishops and abbots carrying ceremonial keys to churches and archives. In the Islamic Golden Age, lockmaking blossomed into both art and innovation. Islamic craftsmen elevated lockmaking to a highly respected trade, creating intricate locks with Arabic inscriptions and complex mechanisms. Scholars like Al-Jazari documented these mechanical devices, laying the groundwork for modern lockmaking. By the end of antiquity, locks had evolved far beyond simple bolts and bars. They had become symbols of civilization itself, reflecting a society's values, fears, and ambitions. Whether forged in iron, carved in wood, or hidden behind sacred geometry, ancient locks were not just about keeping things out but deciding who got to come in. They were tools of power, authority, and secrecy, shaping the course of human history with their silent, enduring presence.